Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. It's Monday, December 8th, 2025, and it's 8:03 a.m. here in Chicago. So we had a good weekend of fights, and now here is my retrospective, time to think things through more assessment of Lamont Roach versus Pitbull Cruz. So, well, let me start by saying I still believe that he was robbed. Even for people who had it 7-5, I had more rounds for Roach, but even for people who had it 7-5, a lot of times people say when it's 7-5, a draw is, just as possible. This is a perfect example of why 7-5 is just that, 7-5. It's not equivalent to a draw based on, different opinions of what they saw. That was such a clear victory for Lamont Roach, 7-5 or not. And I'm being extremely objective here. No, I'm not as angry, even though I had a right to be, because we saw what happened and we know the politics behind it. But that fight was a perfect example of why, if you clearly have at least 7 rounds for a boxer and somebody says, well, I had it a draw, that's not always, grounds for you to say, okay, yeah, well, I can see that. No, that fight, Lamont Roach and Pitbull Cruz, is one of those fights where 7-5 is not, by any stretch of the imagination, a draw. And then, for people arguing that it wasn't a robbery, explain the judge that had it for Pitbull Cruz. I mean, that right there supports the robbery argument. And I'm not surprised. They did the same thing to Bud with Canelo. They did the same thing to Mayweather with Canelo. Now they're going to start doing it for Pitbull Cruz. You know what I mean? And I know you guys see the pattern here. You know what I mean? But here's why I'm a little pissed off at Lamont Roach. When Bud fights, he fights with the urgency necessary to win. When Bud fights with the urgency necessary to win. And do we really need to talk about Mayweather? Mayweather ain't never caught slipping in terms of not valuing his opponent, underestimating his opponent. You ain't never going to catch Mayweather do that, He's always going to take every fight very seriously. And I just feel as though, retrospectively, Lamont Roach went into this fight knowing that he was the better fighter and knowing that Pitbull couldn't beat him. But it ends up where he wins the fight, but he doesn't make it I think he did make it impossible for them to cheat him. I think he did make it impossible for them to cheat him. But the fact that he had so much more in his arsenal, I guess that's what pisses me off, because he did definitely do enough where you would think they would be too exposed to cheat him, but they did it anyway. But the fact that Roach had so much more in his arsenal, how do I know? I know he had more in his arsenal because when you have more in your arsenal, you fight your fight. You don't fight your opponent's fight. That right there tells you he had more in his arsenal. He's fighting Pitbull's fight. Yeah, he's beating him at it, but he would have totally outclassed him if he fought Lamont Roach's fight in more of those rounds. So I'm a little disappointed that whatever was clicking in his mind, he didn't take it as severely as he should have. He already saw what they did with him versus Tank Davis. And then Tank even whispered in his ear, they're not going to give it to you. Tank told him that. Like, what the fuck are you listening to? Are you too busy on social media, having social media beef with anybody now, Lamont? Are you too busy feeling yourself? Tank Davis gave you a gem. When Tank Davis whispered in your ear, they're not going to give it to you. If they're not going to give it to you against a Tank Davis, why the fuck do you think they would give it to you against the next quote-unquote Canelo? Because let's agree that that's what they want Pitbull to be or come close to. They know he's not as smart of a fighter as Canelo, but they figure they can put him in fights with certain people and kind of, sort of, have a little bit of that, Canelo energy. And Tank Davis gave Lamont Roach a real gem when he told him they're not going to give it to you. And they called it a draw. Lamont Roach should have kept that in mind. If they're going to do that versus Tank Davis, what the fuck do you think they're going to do versus a Pitbull Cruz? And do you guys remember in my last video, what was that? Not the last video I made, but the one before that. I said Pitbull Cruz was he probably knew that all he had to do was stay afloat and look like it was a competitive fight, and he was going to get the Tank Davis fight. So it's not just a racial robbery, which I stand by that, it is. It's not just that, though. It's also another way to fuck Lamont Roach over and give Pitbull Cruz the fight with Tank Davis. And Tank Davis is here for it. Tank Davis is all for it because his whole team, that's all they care about. I feel like Tank's team salivates at the mouth over Pitbull more than Pitbull does over Tank. And Tank is the star. Tank is the star, but they be salivating over Pitbull more than the reverse, if you ask me, So, I don't know. It's just so disappointing. But Lamont Roach, he clearly won that fight. But I don't understand why he didn't have more of a sense of urgency. Tank told him what he needed to know. Whether it was just because Tank was gloating or not, he still gave him a gem. And sometimes Tank, we all know he's not wrapped too tight, right? We can all agree Tank Davis isn't wrapped too tight. But we can't deny there are times when Tank is wrapped just fine. And he be telling things that other people never said. When he told Lamont Roach they're not going to give it to you, I feel like I know Tank enough to know that wasn't just his pride, or that wasn't just him saying ha 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 ha. He really was giving Lamont Roach a piece of information, and he meant that shit. But Lamont Roach didn't carry that information with him. He did not, because if he did, he would have used everything in his arsenal, which would not have even been harder for him. It would have been easier for him because he would have been fighting his fight, So that's my final assessment. But yeah, just because somebody has to fight 7-5, I'm tired of hearing people say, it was close, it was close, it was close. No, the fuck, that fight was not close. That was a clear victory for Lamont Roach. Even if you had 7 rounds. If you had 7 rounds, I'm telling you right now, you really desperately looked for 5 rounds to give to Pitbull Cruz. Ain't nobody stupid over here. And Frank Martin, congratulations to him winning, but he needs to shut the fuck up. He's a dumbass. He's a dumbass. I think Pitbull took it. I think Pitbull took it. Like, dude, shut up. That's why Tank knocked you the fuck out. I can't stand people like that. If you didn't really pay attention to the fight, if you didn't really see what's going on, let the people who are supposed to do the politics do the politics. Frank Martin ain't fooling nobody. He knows Pitbull didn't win that fight, but he's deliberately kissing up. He's deliberately kissing up. Ain't nobody stupid over here. Frank Martin, shut the fuck up. You know good and goddamn well Pitbull Cruz should not have taken it. You dumbass. Like, what a fucking idiot. Now I'm taking back all the accolades I gave you. So the fuck what? You knocked out Bartholomew. You still ducked Shakur Stevenson, bitch. But anyway, that's all. Have a good day, everybody. Enjoy your day. It's nice here in Chicago. I mean, there's snow on the ground, but it could be a lot worse. The weather is like somewhere in the 20s, which I'm from Rhode Island. This is damn near warm weather to me. But that's all. Have a good day.